And Do Things Done arose from wanting to think about an idea of attempting to capture an idea of a visual language around what it might have been kind of growing up working class. That was kind of one of the first starting points. And one of the things that I wanted to begin thinking around was this idea of not expecting much and what it means to kind of grow up within that kind of condition of what kind of aspirations or things may lie ahead.
So we started a conversation quite a long time ago about what it is to be influenced by where and how you grow up. It was looking that the condition of not expecting much is a shared one. It's not particular to now, it's not particular to recent austerity, it's a condition that many people have shared over decades or centuries. So he wanted to explore that, and also how his interest in class might be reflected in his materials.
It's a kind of discussion that doesn't take place that readily in the art world, the kind of the working class voice. And so wanted to give kind of presence to that, in the exhibition. There's a different kind of arrangement of a number of the works in the Do Things Done at the Bluecoat, which is in part because of COVID. So there's a book work in the exhibition that people up until now have normally been invited to flick through, but in the Bluecoat exhibition it was scattered across the floor and the audience were invited to walk upon it and walk across it, and that's a book that contains images of the council estate that I grew up on. Kind of a lot of the work draws directly from that particular location, and one of the other works that is different in the Bluecoat show is we've included Malfa, a work from 2011. It was work that was approached with a similar way of making, looking at the idea of an autobiography, but also felt that it resonated with the space of the Bluecoat and the type of building it was, but also the kind of shopping precincts that exist outside of Bluecoat. So the film is presented on top of open windows.
It's like a microcosm of the estate, and you see how it looks partly derelict and partly open, and he said that was always the case, like it never fully took off. So it's this very familiar, I think, shopping centre that most of us would have experienced in a city or a town that's sort of half open and half closed.
I've actually been looking at the quilts for around 7-8 years now, researching Welsh whole cloth quilts. It started with a residency that I did a number of years ago through Photo Gallery, where I spent time with a group of Welsh whole cloth quilters, who are a group of women that met every week and were one of the only groups in Wales that are doing it in the very traditional way of making quilts. The patterns on them are based from the mastheads of the Sun newspaper and the Daily Mirror newspaper, two kind of working class papers, both kind of polar sides of the kind of political spectrum. The Sun was a paper that was banned in our household when I was growing up. We come from a kind of staunch trade unionist household, my paternal grandparents. And so as an entity, it's been something I've been interested in quite a long time, about kind of, the way it presents itself as a kind of a paper of the working classes and how it engages in those things and the power that it holds. And then one of the key works in the whole body of work of Do Things Done is a radio play called Refrain, which is actually in Venice. It existed as a live piece that happened every day for the duration of the Venice Biennale. So for 7 months, my mother performed every day from her flat in Cardiff, this 20-minute play.
This is the only potential for the most honest version of myself I am seeking.
It's performed solely by her, but it's written from a number of different voices, and it talks through her story. It talks through memories of my own story, and then it brings pieces from cultural references.
During the show at Bluecoat, it plays on the hour. So again, there's a reference to the Catholic Mass and the rituals that he and his mum would have gone through.
We invited Sadia to show a piece of work in the gallery that kind of really responded to, that was a work looking at the kind of history of her own mother and her mother's travels and journey to the country.
Dream is a kind of theatre, and this is just how stories are told, right here.
And so I was interested in opening up part of the space of the exhibition to another voice and bringing another voice into this conversation, to have this other story that deals with many of similar issues to do with what we inherit, what we take forward, what we carry, what we travel with. And, kind of feels great honour to have that exhibition that Sadia's made sit alongside some of these other things in the show. I received free school meals as a child growing up, and I was suddenly put into a school that was kind of predominantly middle class, and actually became one of very few children that were kind of receiving free school meals. And that was at the time we used to have to queue up and received your ticket and all of these things. So there's this kind of stigmatization that was attached to it. I, for a long time, have been thinking about this and wanting to kind of reclaim that sense of shame, I guess, that I thought, and actually kind of wear it differently, position it as a political statement that became a way of making this stance, kind of having this kind of political claim that felt, kind of relevant at the time, 2019, but feels only more present and kind of relevant now in relation to the kind of contemporary situation and everything that is being done. One of the works that's changed for the exhibition is In Parallel with the Past. That work was sadly destroyed in Venice in the flooding that happened at the end of November. So I had to reimagine it, but it was quite interesting to reimagine it. So now it's an image-based work that runs around the corner of a gallery. And the work continues the ideas of fragmentation within the work. And what does it mean to bring kind of memory across with you and travel with memory? The images on the work are composed of an archive of my kind of family photographs, extracts from my father's personal independence payment questionnaire that was carried out just before he passed away, images of me growing up as a child. And so you have this kind of long, almost film strip that you get to move through, and these small details, these small moments that make a total picture, but have to kind of be pieced together in your mind in some way.
So working with Shaun Edwards was both a really unique occurrence for Venice, because that only comes once a lifetime, but it also reflects Bluecoat's way of coming back to work with an artist again. So we do make lots of new opportunities for artists. We're always looking for new artists to work with, but we've been lucky enough to work repeatedly with some artists and sort of join them on their journey as their work evolves and become part of that journey. We're really fortunate to be able to carry on these conversations, and I think that's sometimes what you do. You start a conversation and it's an exchange and you can return to it, and there's something new for the public to encounter each time.